Well, good morning, everyone. We're really glad you're here this morning. I'm very, very excited about this program. And I'm excited about it for two reasons. Because first of all, it's the inaugural or the beginning of our Small Business Matters series. Now, last year, we launched our Small Business of the Year program. We got some great feedback from that, and we found that there was a real need for small business programming, the matters of small business that each one of you face every single day. And so I started thinking about the people that I had in the past work with me and give me training and have a big impact in my life. And the first thing that came to my mind was Jim Kill. I've been in sales all my life. I've been to the training of the masters. I've been to Brian Tracy. I've been to Tom Hopkins. I've been to Dennis Waitley for psychology training, all those people. I've never met anybody who had an impact on my life the way Jim Kill did. And that's the honest truth. And the reason is because I went to all those things and I got all fired up, but I was never able to do anything with it. It was just, gosh, I'm so excited, and then I go out and the first contact I have with the enemy, the world, boom, nothing happened. And Jim, on the other hand, when I first met Jim, he actually called on me as a sales call. And from the moment I answered the phone to the moment we first met, I knew I was in the presence of someone different. They had a totally different approach. And so I want to tell you that today you're going to see a totally different approach, something you haven't seen before, I'm sure of it, unless you've seen Jim Kill or his partner Carl Bromer. So I want you to kind of relax, suspend your disbelief about sales training, because I know there's some of that. I've had that before. I want you just to relax and enjoy what you're going to find is the most natural way to sell. Come on in, Mel. The most natural way to sell. It's a process and a system they developed, so it's nowhere else. But what I know will happen is today you'll walk out of here and you'll be changed. And you'll be more confident in your selling, you'll sell more, and you'll do it in a way that people will enjoy it more as well. So please help me welcome Jim Kill.
That's kind of a big thing to be
no pressure.
To come up to, right? Somebody says, this is the greatest guy I've ever met. Thanks, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Well, my goal is to exceed those expectations. Let me share one of my pet peeves with you. One of my pet peeves is that when I've sat where you've sat, somebody gets up and starts pontificating, and they start talking about whatever they're going to talk about, and they don't tell me anything about themselves, and I'm thinking, well, why should I listen to you? What qualifies you to talk to me? So let me just share a little bit about my background, and I think I saw you came in. Would you pass that back? Did everybody get a book? Anybody come in? I missed giving a little booklet too. Let me give you about my background. I got out of college in the early 70s, and I was a high school math teacher for 9 years. And my family was growing, but my income wasn't. So I had to do something different. Answered an ad in the newspaper, and I went to work for this company, and I was recruiting students to go to a career school in Florida. And I lived in Southwest Ohio. I actually lived in Dayton at the time. And I thought, well, wow, who wouldn't want to go to Florida to go to school? This ought to be pretty simple. And they said, now, Jim, if you'll do everything we tell you to do, you can make $30,000. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot today, but in 1981, as a high school math teacher, I'd never made 20. So 30 sounded like a pretty good deal. So for one solid year, I did everything they told me to do. And I made all the way up to $8,000. Now let that sink in just a minute. Doesn't mean I didn't sell anything, because I did. I sold my furniture, I tried to sell my kids. I mean just everything, just to survive. In the summer of 1982, and Glenn's already mentioned his name, I met a guy by the name of Carl Bromer. Now, Carl was the vice president of sales for a manufacturing company in Dayton. They needed a salesperson. I needed another job, and we kind of took a chance on each other. 2 days before I started that job, I was starting on a Monday. On a Saturday, Carl invited me to come to a sales training program that he was conducting. Now, he did sales training on the side at that time. The title of that program, you'll see the same title on the front of your booklet. It's called Natural Selling Concepts. I'm a student of what I teach today. Now that's over 30 years ago. And I still use it today. So it's not something that it sounds good and it does, oh boy, and then you get out and like Glenn said, all the programs that he's gone through, and I've gone through some too. Sound good, fire you up for maybe 2 weeks, And then you can't even remember the name of the guy or the gal that taught me. So I'm a product of what I teach. I went to work for that company, and first 6 months I was in inside sales, kind of learning the ropes. And then I went outside. They gave me a territory and said, okay, big boy, you got it. Go make it happen. Well, that year, this was 1983 now, that year I had never made, or I made more money than I'd ever made in my life. And I thought, wow, life is good. And the next year I had about a 50–60% increase on that. And then they said in the spring of 1985, how would you like to move to Atlanta? And I said, how soon can I pack and get there? Now let me tell you why. In January of 1985 in Dayton, Ohio, you think it's cold or getting cold? 20 straight days it never got above 0. One day was actually 25 below. That wasn't wind chill, that was real temperature, and it was real cold. And my wife said, Jim, we got to get out of here. And she said, ever get a chance to go south? Take it. Well, this was January. In June of 1985, we moved to Atlanta. Lived on the north side in Gwinnett County. And that summer of 1985, up until recently, was the second hottest summer in history. So we went from real cold to real hot in a short period of time. Well, I came here with no customers, with no background, other than we had a lot of competitors. And I will never forget my first sales call. I went right by the facility the other day. It used to be an old AT&T facility at the corner of Jimmy Carter Boulevard and I-85. My first call. Now, I've been used to making 60 to 80 sales a month in Dayton. So I thought, okay. Didn't do a whole lot of cold calling because they gave me a territory and said, go get them. And I did. And I was blessed. Had a good career. So here I am walking up the steps thinking, okay, don't know who I need to talk to, but I'm going to talk to somebody. Sweat's pouring down. It's hot. I'm nervous. And I remember, the only thing I remember is there's a security guard in front of me. And I was so nervous I could hardly tell him my name. I've been selling for 3 years, so what's going on here? But I came back out in the car, I looked in the rearview mirror, and I said, Jim, come on. You can do this. Well, that month I made 3 sales. The next month I made 6 sales. And the next month I made 12 sales. And it just went up from there. And in 2.5 years, I went from 0, and another guy came in and joined me to over $1 million of sales out of that office. Now, it's not because I'm such a super salesperson. I'm not. It's because I had a system. And I'm going to give you a part of that system today. I stayed with that company for 7.5 more years. And then a friend of mine who was a headhunter, he said, hey, don't know if you'd be interested, but there's a small family business in Griffin that's looking for a salesman. What do you think? And I said, well, they did. They told me. I said, I don't know anything about that. He said, just go listen. Well, I did. And they sold me on coming to Griffin. Now, my wife grew up on a farm in Ohio. We were moving from Gwinnett County to Spalding County. It was not it was not a hard sell for her. She was ready to go. So we've lived there ever since. I worked for them for 5 years. They were in the gasoline wholesale business, in the convenience store business, in the tire and battery business. And so the first year I was in sales, the second, third year I was in marketing, the fourth and fifth year I was in operations. And then Carl came back into my life. He called me one day and said, hey, I'm doing sales training full time. Would you consider joining me? And in January of 1998, so over 15 years ago now, I did. And it's been a blessing. I get to teach and I get to sell. And that's what I enjoy doing more than anything else in the world. So that's a little bit about my background. Now, I wish we had time to give you all the same opportunity to tell me about your background, but here's what I'd like to do, because we do have a little bit of time. I'd like to go around the room, and here's what I'd like you to tell me. Give me your name again. I've introduced myself to, I think, just about everybody, and heard your name. And I told one person, I've got an incredible memory. It's just incredibly short. And so I might call somebody says, now I might call you 3 or 4 names before we get out of here this morning. That's just the way it is. So I want to hear your name again, and some of you for the first time. Here's what I'd like you to tell me. Tell me your name, what you do, and how long you've been in sales, or how long you've been selling. And you might say, well, I own my own company. Well, yeah, you're selling all the time. So let's start over here. I know you're with the chamber.
Yes.
So I don't remember the name.
Hey,
okay.
yes, sir. And let's see, I've been with the chamber for a year, but I've been in sales ever since college, if you want to date myself. About 12 years.
12 years. Okay. Thank you, Paige.
Alicia Knox, and I'm with Approved Capital Partners. I do business loans and commercial loans.
Okay.
And I've been in the business for 20 plus.
Wow. Okay. You started when you were 6.
Right out of high school.
Right out of high school. Okay.
Second.
I'm Angel Morales. I own the business Service Master 2 years now.
Okay.
And I've been in sales since 1991.
Okay. Great.
I'm Dick Garrison. I'm with Life Plan Financial Advisors. I handle all the marketing and the advertising and sales for my wife's business. She takes care of the customer on the financial side. I have been probably in sales since I've been 10 years old.
Okay. Great.
So that's about 10 years.
Okay.
I'm Mark Sprague. I'm with Snapshot Graphics. I've been in business for myself now for a year. So it's been about a year of sales.
Okay.
Before that, I was a pre-press manager for a large digital print shop for 10, 15 years.
Okay. Good. And say the first name again? Mark. Okay. Chuck?
With the chamber, been in sales for 3 years.
Okay. Chuck?
Samantha with Progressive Heating and Air. I guess in one way or another for about 16 years.
Okay.
My name is Jared Bird. I own a 5 Links franchise and also own and invest in real estate. And I've been in sales overall probably a total of 15 years.
And what's the franchise again, Jared?
5 Links. We sell essential services.
Okay. Great.
My name is Debbie Mullins. I'm with Air Powered Hydraulics. We manufacture hydraulic cylinders. I was not hired to do sales, but I'm going to do sales. And,
that's not uncommon, by the way.
And I've owned my own business in the past and so on, so probably total, I'm going to say 30 years.
Okay. Thank you, Deb.
Good morning. My name is Benita Stevens, and I'm an obstetrician, gynecologist, and a weight loss specialist. So I guess I've just recently got into sales because usually I don't have to sell my services, but with weight loss it's a little bit different.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Benita.
I'm Barry Ash. I've been retired for about 12 years. Part of that time up until now, including now, I've worked for the chamber. Prior to that, after teaching for a couple of years math, I was in the sales in the textile machine business for 35 years.
Okay. Great.
Okay, I'm Mel Kendricks, and I am with the chamber also in sales and retention.
Okay.
And let me see, I won't say how many years I've been, 45 years. I've been in education and sales with McGraw-Hill and Sandoz Pharmaceutical.
Okay. Thank you, Mel.
My name is Peter Poulos, and I've been in sales 58 years.
Wow.
And I was in sales and marketing in the hotel industry for several years. Had the opportunity also to be part of the Zig Ziglar organization in Dallas, Texas, and their Ziglar Performance Group for a few years, and love sales. It's great.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I agree.
I'm Sears Lee and work with at-home assistants, and I've owned companies for about 18 years.
Okay. Thank you, Sears.
My name is Joe. I've been in sales with this company that we own for 5 years, but I think I've pretty much been in sales my entire life. I'm trying to sell mom on something or brother on something else.
And it's Joel.
Joel, like Joseph.
Okay.
And, well, he's with Ecoscrub. That's our company. We
Okay.
worked it for 5 years. We're down near Wayne Williamson.
Okay.
And we branched off, and I do the house cleaning division, chickadee. My name's Rick. 5 years.
I might have met you two at the Griffin Spalding Chamber.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you looked familiar. Now, okay, now I know where it is. Okay. Not so bad. Not so bad.
I'm Rob Cole. Professional, I guess I've been in sales for 20 years, for over 5 years. And I'm the best guy.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
My name is Darnell Long. I'm branch manager for the Best Bank here in Newnan. I've been in sales about 11 years.
Okay.
Kwame America, semi-retired owner, both CPA and clinical law at, and one of the United Sales, I built it over there as a century too.
Wow. And say your first name again.
Martin.
Art. Great. Oh, one more.
Jason?
Jason, you gotta introduce yourself.
Jason, come on, Jason.
You may call out just like in school, Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Aker. I'm a financial advisor, a local independent advisor.
Okay, and been selling how long, Jason?
I started with Smith Barney in '09.
Okay, okay, great. You know, most people think, well, I've just been in sales for, and you fill in the blank. But as some person kind of alluded all their life, you know that we were born selling. Now, I have a fairly new granddaughter that I'm going to go and see here. I'm leaving on Friday to head to Ohio, and two of our daughters both were born in Ohio, but came here with us and met men in Ohio, and they went back. Why? I have no idea.
Cold weather.
But, yeah, cold weather, I get it. But I have a new granddaughter that was born on the 28th of January. That's number 10. And we are extremely blessed. Of course, and I tell people, we have 6 children. So when you have 6 children, you have a greater chance to have grandchildren. So, and been married going on 42 years. So,
Congratulations.
and I love her more today than ever. And I tell her that every day, by the way. So she is the blossom of my life. She keeps me going. Actually, she prepared these booklets for you. So she's very actively involved in what I do. But this granddaughter came out, like the others, selling. How do little children sell? How do infants sell? Cry. Why? What are the 2 things typically that they want to be taken care of? Food and changed. Right. So we're all salespeople. We're all, because all we're doing when we're selling is influencing. We're trying to get somebody to come to our way of thinking. Now, about halfway through my 9-year teaching career, I had a parent say, "Jim, you ought to get into sales. You got a great personality, you get along well with people." And I thought, nah. You know why? Because in my mind, I was convinced that to be a successful salesperson, I had to do what the dictionary said. And I didn't bring my dictionary today other than on my phone, but let me read to you what the dictionary says you and I do when we sell. This is the verb sell. To exchange or deliver for money or its equivalent. That sounds pretty good. To offer for sale as for one's business or livelihood. To give up or surrender in exchange for a price or reward. To be purchased. But now it gets a little exciting. To exchange as in to dupe someone. To provide a hoax. To, let me give you another one here. Let's see. The one I wanted is not on my... Okay, yeah, a deception. Sounds pretty exciting. To get rid of by selling, to betray one's cause. You know, now most people, when they've had an experience with a salesperson, what happens is they think of those negative ones. Now, I want you to think of something for me. Recently, all of us, in some form or fashion, were customers. I want you to think of a negative experience that you had as a customer where the salesperson didn't treat you right. Anything come to mind readily? Something happened? Okay, now, see how, I'm not very good yet. Go ahead, tell me your name. Alicia, yes. Tell me something. You have to go into all the gory details, but just kind of give us a brief, what happened?
Actually, I was in line and the cashier was not at her station.
Okay.
And there was someone else that was behind the desk.
Okay.
And she didn't say anything either, and I'm standing there.
Okay.
I was waiting.
Okay.
And I'm looking around, and the line started getting long. And then the lady finally came, and then she told me, "Why didn't you ring the bell?"
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, okay. Why did you ring the bell?
So it was your fault, Alicia, right?
Yes.
It's your fault that she didn't give you the service that she wanted to give you. Okay.
She told me that was what the bell was there for.
Okay. Anybody else? Just real quick. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. It's Debbie?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I remember the one.
I test drove a car on Saturday, and went in with I'm not interested in purchasing something today. I want to drive a couple things, and was not that thrilled with the car. And the guy says to me, "Well, if you want to give us a deposit today, we can bring in what you really want." Hello?
How did that make you feel?
Like he never listened to a word I said.
Okay. Yep. Anybody else have that experience? Salesperson doesn't listen? Harvey?
I had a bank account on behalf of the trust down in Florida. I wanted to do something where I wasn't getting service charge to debt. They said it was impossible, so they got a branch up here in Newton. I went in, said, I've already made arrangements, I've opened up another account with no service charges, and told her what happened, and she was so apologetic. She said, that's so wrong.
So,
And if you hadn't opened up an account already, I would have refunded the service charges to you somehow, and open up a new account for you with the service charge. But since you already opened it up, I hope.
right. Okay.
I said, I wish I would have thought of you first.
So you had both experiences. You had a not so nice experience and had a pleasant experience where somebody was trying to right the wrong. Now here's what I want you to keep in mind. As customers, we've all been I'm going to call that violated. And what I want you to think of when you think of a negative sales experience or a negative salesperson, I want you to think partly of the definition that I just read on my phone. We're going to call that a Webster salesperson. And when you hear me refer to that over the next few minutes that we're together, you don't want to be Webster. Okay? We don't want to be Webster. We want to be something different. We want to be a breath of fresh air. Now, here's the thing we have to keep in mind. I had this happen the other day. In addition to training like I do here, do a lot of sales coaching, a lot of one-on-one, where I'll sit with a person that's making phone calls, or I've got a client down in Florida that I actually fly down there and get in the car with him, and we drive the sales calls, and then I give him some feedback on what happened in his sales call. Here's the thing to keep in mind. You are guilty of being a Webster salesperson until you prove yourself innocent. Because people have been so violated with that type of negative experience that all of a sudden, boom, you show up and they put up the defenses. Because you're Webster. Had a situation happen recently where I was working with a person. We were making phone calls. And the person on the other end, I couldn't hear what he said, but the person on the other end, nobody, excuse me, I did hear it because he put it on speaker. I did hear when he said, the guy entered, hi, I'm Jim with, and gave the name of his company. And he said, oh, we're good, thank you. Click. That was it. He didn't get a chance to even say, is now a good time to talk? I just have a couple quick questions. Nope, now we're good. Boom. Now, that happens. Anybody ever had that happen to you? Yeah, we all have. We all have. That's a part of being a salesperson.
Don't like it.
Pardon me?
Don't like it.
Don't like it. Don't have to like it. You know, I've been in sales over 30 years, and you know they still say no to me? Huh? How can that be? Because you're going to get more no's than you do get yeses. I love baseball. If we had time, I'd sit and talk to you about baseball till Glenn would shut me up. But we don't. But here's one thing I've learned. A number of years ago, there was a guy that hit a whole bunch of home runs. And that year, he got paid $8 million to hit home runs. Professional. Okay? Being the mathematician that I am, I thought, well, I'm going to figure out what percentage of the time is he successful doing what they pay him to do. You know what percent it was? The percent of times that he swung the bat, how many times did he hit the ball for a home run? 2. He was a 2%er and got paid $8 million. Wow. Now, wouldn't that be nice? That we close 2% of the people we call on to get paid $8 million? Good. Not going to happen. But what I want to tell you is you don't have to be this high-level percentage person. Obviously, we want to keep getting better. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about this morning. I teach a system, as I've already alluded, called Natural Selling Concepts. Now, here's the teacher in me. I always have something to write on, notes for you to take, blanks to fill in. So if you'll open to the overview, what I'm going to share with you is just highlights of a day-long program. Okay? So I'm picking things that I think you would be most interested in based upon 15 years of doing this. And time permitting, I'll let you ask questions on other things as well. So I'm giving you a little bit about my background, but I'd like to tell you a quick story. How many of you like ice hockey? Anybody watch any ice hockey? Okay. A number of years ago, and I want to say 6 or 7 now, there was a movie that came out called Miracle. Anybody remember the movie Miracle? What was it about, Darnell? Do you remember? The Olympic team of what year? Do you remember that? 1980. Very good. 1980. Okay? The last Olympic team that was really amateur. Since then they've used professionals, and isn't it interesting? They haven't won any gold medals. They used amateurs, won this. Okay. But in 1980, this movie Miracle was about the coach of that 1980 team. Does anybody remember the coach's name?
Herb Brooks.
Wow! You hockey fans here? No, just remember that. Okay, Herb Brooks is his name. Now, interesting thing about the 1980 team, there were 20 young men on that team. In their late teens to mid-20s, all amateurs, all different degrees of ability. Only one other time in Olympic history has the U.S. men's ice hockey team won the gold medal. Does anybody know what year that was?
60.
Sears, you're amazing. Wow. You know, down south, I never get these, nobody ever answers these questions right. Up north, you go up there in hockey country, and they know everything. You know, they know Herb Brooks' kids and everything. All right. But only one other time in history, 1960. Now, two interesting facts I want to share with you about the 1960 team. Number one, there were also 20 young men of varying degrees of ability on that team. And what the experts tell us is that the best player on the team, if they could have just taken those 20 players and they didn't age a bit and taken them 20 years later, they couldn't have made the 1980 team. That's how much the sport had elevated in 20 short years. Here's the other interesting fact about that 1960 team. 20 players, I said, were on the team. The 21st player, which would be the last man cut, the 21st player was a man by the name of Herb Brooks. Now, if he couldn't make the 1960 team, would you agree with me that he wasn't as good as any of the players on the 1980 team? Wasn't. He didn't have the ability, except he knew what it took to be a gold medal winner. And if you've never watched the movie, just watch, not for the sport of hockey, I'm not a big hockey fan, but just the human interest of what he did to bring out the ability. Now, what does that have to do with me? I'm not here to tell you I'm a great salesperson. I've had some success, had a lot of failings along the way. The greatest success has come from coaching. I know what to do, I can't always do it myself. But I can show you exactly what needs to be done. Okay. Secondly, we're going to talk about the definition of selling. Now, I've given you the Webster definition, and what I'd like you to write is just next to the question mark there where it says, what's the definition of selling? Write the word Webster and circle it, and then put a slash through it. So, I have one more, hold on. Let me pull out something here. You can have that. Now, if anybody else comes, we're going to have to run off copies. Okay, you do not want to be Webster. Let's see if I can get it. Here we go. Put this in the right order. Glenn first told me there would be 15 participants, and then he emailed me and said, I've got 18 coming. And usually there's always somebody that drops out. So I thought, okay, if I make 20 books, I'll be good. So we got 20. So that's great. That's great, great. Okay. Here's our definition of selling. Our definition. So the first one is finding. Finding. Now I'm saying a company, but it could be an individual. But finding a company or individual who has a need. Who has a need that your products or service can satisfy, and then filling that need in such a way that you both make a profit or a gain. So let me say it again. It's finding a company or a person that has a need that your products or your service can satisfy, and then filling that need in such a way that you both make a profit or a gain. Now I want you to circle two words. The first word is finding. Finding. How do we find clients or customers?
Prospect.
Prospect. Okay? Anybody else? How do you prospect? Search? How do we do that?
Cold calling.
The internet? Yeah.
A network.
Jared? Network? Okay, good.
Cold calling.
Jason? Cold call. Referral. Nick, is it Nick? Nick, okay. Referral. Now, cold calling, Jason said cold calling, probably the least effective. You're going to get a lot of not interested, thank you. But referrals, you know, if I call you and say, hey, Glenn Gould told me to give you a call, and you go, who? No, no.
That's exactly right.
Referrals are the most effective because now you've got somebody that's giving you an intro into it. And by the way, and we'll talk a little bit about this, most of us, moi included, most of us don't ask for enough referrals. Take the time, and here, let's just do a quick activity here while I'm thinking about it. I want you to think of your best customer, the one, not necessarily that buys the most from you, but somebody that you have the greatest relationship with. Did you call them up on the phone today and say, hey, could you help me? Could you help me? I'm trying to build my business a little bit. Who do you know that could potentially benefit from doing business with us like you have? I want you to write down that person's name. Just as a reminder, because I'm going to encourage you to go back over your notes. Don't just do like I've done so many times as I take a little booklet that I get in my seminar and I throw it on the shelf and all it does is collect dust. I hope you'll take the time just to go back and pull out a couple of things from what I say this morning. But call that person and say, what if you could help me? That's a 4-letter word, by the way, that you do want to memorize and use. Help. Help. Because most people want to be helpful. We just don't ask enough. What if you'd help? Could you help me? I was in Asheville, North Carolina a number of years ago. I was going up there to speak at a conference, and I got turned around where I was supposed to go. Pulled into a convenience store, which was right on the corner there. Just pushed the button, window's coming down, and this person sees the window come down, and they see, I must have had that look on my face like I'm lost, because he started walking up. He was a customer there. He wasn't somebody that worked there. I said, could you help me? Sure. What do you need? I said, I'm lost. Where is so-and-so? He said, oh, it's right down the street. Just go down here and turn around. He didn't back off and say, I don't want to help you, buddy. You look kind of weird. All right? But if you ask for help, most people want to be helpful. That's a 4-letter word that you don't want to get good used to. Okay. If we had time, here's a little roadmap, and I'm sorry it's so small, but I had to shrink it to get it on this page. Normally, if I was doing a day-long seminar, you'd get a spiral-bound book, and this would be blown up and cover about half the page. But if you look in the upper left-hand corner of that little diagram, and we're going to talk about that as soon as we turn the page, how do you find new business? What are some things? We've already talked about a couple of ways. Once you find people to call, people to contact, how do you contact them? If you go to the right, you'll see contacting. We talk about various scripts to use to contact people that are non-offensive, that raise your level. By the way, anything of this that you do will never give you 100% results. It's geared to help you improve your results. So how do you contact? We'll talk a little bit about that today. How important do you think relationship is with doing business with people? Most important. Why? Why, Sears?
Because if you're going to repeat or do anything, they've got to trust you, they've got to feel comfortable with you.
Okay. Okay. Good.
They know you, they like you.
Okay. Yep. Now, I heard 2 key words here. Sears said trust, Nick said like. Which do you think of those 2 would be more important?
Trust.
Trust. There's a funny thing about that. All right? You find 2 ends of the spectrum here. I'm on this end. This is just Jim Kill. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the way I am. I'm a very naturally trusting person. That's just the way I'm wired. I'll trust you until you do something, unless you do something that violates my trust. Then we've got to work on it again. Some of you are over here on this end. You're a little more skeptical. You're saying, okay, you got to earn my trust. You got to do something to prove to me that you are trustworthy. And that's okay. And sometimes we're in the middle, or we waver back and forth, and that's okay. But here's the thing. I may not necessarily trust you right away, but there are things that I can do to help that person trust me by helping them to like me. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. How do I get somebody to like me more? Yes, sir.
You know, my wife and I had this conversation. She's in the financial services business. There's parts of the country, parts of the city, versus others that people are more trusting.
Good point.
Than not.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And we got to watch that. Okay. Next is qualifying. We're going to end today on that. End our time together on that. I want you to circle the word qualifying. is I'm going to give you a question to ask that I have found to be the most powerful question that you can ask early on in the process to get a commitment from that person to determine, I'm going to test the waters, is there an opportunity for business? Are you willing to make some commitments on your part if I make some commitments on my part as the salesperson? This will save you a lot of time and can effectively make you a lot of money in the long run. Just keep that in mind as we go forward. Presenting. We're not going to talk about presenting today, but this is where you actually tell the client, the prospect, here's what I have to offer. Now, let me ask you a question here. You don't want to be a Webster salesperson, right? Okay. Where do you think the Webster person puts presenting in their steps of the process? Who knows? Number one, if you pardon the way I say it, they show up and throw up. Let me tell you how great we are. Let me tell you what we do. I don't care. Give me an opportunity to learn a little bit about you to see if I even want to do business with you before I present. Okay? Next is objections. How many of you love to hear objections from customers? Nick is one of the weird guys.
Love's a little strong, but...
Yeah. And
yes.
Joe.
Joe.
Okay. Objections, typically, my idea of a perfect sales call would be this. I show up and I walk in the door and they say, what do you sell? And I tell them, you mind if we go ahead and do business now? Can I pay cash? That's a perfect sales call for me. I don't need objections to feel good about what I do. But they are part of the process. Does anybody know the number, we're not going to go into detail today, but does anybody know the number one objection that we face in selling, no matter what it is you're selling? That's what most people think, it's money, but it's not. Money's about number two, some cases it's number three.
I'll think it over.
Aha! Tell me your name again.
Peter.
Peter. Yeah. That is the number one objection. I want to think it over. Let me get back to you. Let me sleep on it. Call me next week.
Let me check with my husband.
Let me check with my husband. In other words, I don't want to make a decision right now. Do you know that research tells us that 95% of the time when you hear, I want to think it over, or a variation thereof, that 95% of the time what's going on up here is, you've still not answered all of my questions to my satisfaction. Now, if that's the case, wouldn't it be helpful for me to have some way to get them to tell me what those questions are without being obnoxious? All right? There is a way. We call this way, by the way, a lamb. A lamb. A lamb is a most appropriate response. A most appropriate response. Now, let me tell you where it comes from. I'm going to take control of your brains here in just a minute. I've kind of pre-programmed this. But I'm going to take control of your brains. I want you to see, don't say anything, but I want you to see if you can block what goes into the blank. I'm going to give you a fill-in-the-blank statement. At the end of the statement is a blank. Right before the blank, I'm going to clap, and you see on the clap, see if you can block what goes into the blank. Ready? Mary had a little...
Didn't work.
See? I told you not to even say anything, and a number of you said lamb. Why? Because we're so programmed to say lamb. Are there other things that we could have put into the blank? Sure. Mary had a little brother. That would have worked, right? Mary had a little problem. Mary had a little hernia. That would have worked. But what's the most appropriate? Lamb. Now, what does that have to do with selling? Somebody says to you, Jim, let me think it over. Now, what do you say? You know what the number one response today is when somebody says, let me think it over? Okay. When would you like me to call you back? In other words, I'm quitting. I'm leaving. I won't let the door hit me in the backside on the way out. Now, what's the danger? If you're in a sales situation and maybe you've made some pretty good progress and the person, you're ready to close and the person says, well, let me think it over, and you say, okay, when would you like me to call you back? What's the danger of you leaving that situation?
Lose the sale.
Why, Harvey? Why would you necessarily lose the sale? What could happen that would cause you to lose the sale?
Somebody else might pop up, or who knows what.
Somebody else pops up that took my course and knows what to do.
The law of diminishing intent, because the longer you leave that situation, the greater they're gonna have, maybe they were excited and getting close.
Exactly.
But the longer it's away, the greater the chance you won't get it.
Now, let me just give you one. Unfortunately, like I said, we can't go into great degree of objection today, but let me give you a lamb. Somebody says to you, let me think it over. Here's my lamb. Here's what I say. Let's say it's Joe. Joe says, let me think it over. Well, Joe, I can appreciate it's an important decision for you and your company, but let me ask you something. Typically, my experience says that when you hesitate, it's because I haven't answered all your questions. What kind of questions do you have that are slowing you down, and maybe I can answer some of them today?
Politely and directly, right to the point.
What kind of questions do you have? Not do you have any.
What kind of question?
What kind do you have? See, I know they've got them. So let me ask, what kind of questions do you have? Not do you have any. What's the danger if you say, do you have any?
You know.
You're going to know. Yeah. So what kind of questions do you have? By the way, as much as you can, ask open-ended questions. Questions that cause them to respond other than yes or no. I want to hear what's going on in between the ears. And if I just ask yes or no questions, I don't know what's going on in between the ears. Okay. Let me go on. Closing is the one bottom right. You know that's the #1 fear that most salespeople have? Why do you think that's true?
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection. You know, most of us in sales are there because we like people. We want people to like us. And if we don't ask the question of them saying no, because if they say no, they don't like me, no, it's nothing about you at all. Hopefully it's not you. It might be just they don't want your product. And that's okay. 2 words that I use when I'm talking to people is, I like to explore to see if there's a fit. I use those 2 words a lot, explore and fit. They're very non-confrontational words. You mind if we just meet for a few minutes? Let's explore to see if there might be a fit for our doing business. And mean it, sincerely mean it. I'm looking for business. You know, when I called on Glenn a number of years ago when he was with another chamber, we were exploring. We sat down and I didn't know if he'd say yes or not. We had done business with this chamber years before. We had stopped. I had called back. I was told, talk to Glenn. He's the person. We sat down and explored. Got at the end, Glenn said, you know, I've been thinking about doing something. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if it works. And it did. Let's explore. Let's see if there might be a fit. Okay. If you continue on around, we're going to ask for referrals. We already talked a little bit about that. You'll see the cannon up there with the arrows. Right below the cannon is we talk about quality improvement. This is a sheet that we've developed that has 20 different traits on that if I'm working with you one-on-one, I give you some feedback on your eye contact, your voice tone, your question quality, your follow-up quality. Did you ask for referrals? Those are just a few. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you doing? That's what I mean by quality improvement. Because one thing is true. If you don't know how you're doing, you don't know where to improve in, do you? So I give you some, and oftentimes we don't know how we're doing. We might think, for example, is eye contact important?
Yes.
Why?
It's trust.
Trust. Now, if somebody can't look into the eye, can't look you in the eye, what would you think? Shifty? Yeah. Excuse me just a second. You know you're getting old when you have to wear contacts and reading glasses. I asked the doctor, I said, can we do it? No. He says, you're that age? Yeah, okay. And every once in a while I get something in the contact. I had a lady one time I met at a seminar like this, and when she shook my hand, I said, hi, I'm Jim Kill, and she goes, hi, I'm Teresa. She couldn't look me in the face to introduce herself. I didn't think I'd want to do business with her. That was at one of Glenn's events, too. That was a dandy. Okay, let's turn the page. Oh, one other thing, and that is continuing to grow. And I'll be glad if anybody wants to give me a card, and I'm not going to spam you, but if you want to give me a card, I already have one from Peter, I will email to you my reading list. Here's one thing I'll tell you, and then that's all I'm going to say about reading today. If you want to be a leader, you got to be a reader. Got to be a reader. Theodore Roosevelt said, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. Become an avid reader. I'll give you, I've got 20 books on this list, but I've got a whole lot more. And be constantly reading. Constantly reading. Filling your mind. Filling your mind. Jason?
I have a question about the roadmap real quick.
Okay.
You have asked for referrals before deliver. Why would you not ask for the referral after you've delivered the product?
It can go either way. It can go either way. It depends on your relationship with the person.
Right.
You know, maybe everybody's feeling good about how things are going. So good question. Yeah.
He missed my comment before you started that we used to in our business, we made sure that we asked for referrals before we started because we hadn't screwed anything up yet. So.
Okay. So turn the page. Best sources for new business. Does anybody know your #1 best source for new business? Your current customers or clients. Your current ones. Now, we've already said one of the things that they do for you, and that is what? They give you referrals. Now, the chances are they'll give you more referrals if you ask for them. A whole lot more. So use that scripting or a variation thereof of asking for one. If you could help me, who do you know? Not do you know anybody, who do you know? Again, there's an implied you know somebody. I was in a Bible study with a friend of mine years ago up in Norcross, and his name was Rick. And I said, hey Rick, I know you work for this one particular company. I ride by at the company every day. Wonder, could you help me? I just want to know, who should I call on? He said, well, what do you do? I told him. He said, well, I'm in charge of the marketing department. That's my department. I thought, oh boy. He said, no, he said, I'm not the one you call on. You call on Catherine. She's my assistant. Now here's the deal, Jim. I'll introduce you to Catherine, but you got to sell yourself. That's fair. We did $100,000 the first year with that company. All because I asked a question. There are people out there, that didn't happen all the time, but that's one success story. But here's what I'm telling you. You've got people like that too. That can lead you to, I can call them $1 million customers, because I think I ended up doing $1 million or close to it over the years I did business with them. They're there, but you got to ask for them. You walk by them every day. Your kids or your grandkids are playing ball, they're in soccer leagues, they do dance recital, all kinds of things. Sit next to somebody, what do you do? Just ask them a question. What do you do? Really? What if you could help me? I'd like to call on this company. I'm in sales. I'm calling this company. Would you know somebody that I should talk to there just to see if there might be a fit for our doing business? What do you got to lose? Just ask. Be a person that asks a lot of questions. Okay. What else do your current customers or clients do for you besides referrals that can help you build your business? Testimonies or testimonials and referrals.
They buy more feedback.
Buy more stuff. Yeah, they buy more stuff. Now, some of you might say, well, Jim, we only have a little, this is all we sell. That's fine. The company I really became successful in selling, we had 5 different areas of things that we did in our business, and most people knew us for 2. And it was amazing. You'd say, well, we also do, well, we got somebody else that covers that right now. But 2 years later, they'd say, do you know anybody that does so-and-so? And I said, yeah, remember 2 years ago I told you we did that. They don't remember, because they didn't have a need right now. You've got to constantly be educated. Constantly, who do you know? Or we also do this. Would there be somebody I could talk to about the possibility of doing business here? Or explore? Just constantly asking, constantly educating. Second best source. Second best source. For you. Now this will be different. Somebody said, use the internet. That's one. Come to networking events. 2. Do you have business after hours, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay. Come
This
to business
week.
after hours. I'm sorry?
This week on Thursday.
This week on Thursday. Hey, lead it. Listen, when you come, let me just tell you, and then we'll go on. When you come to a networking event, here should be your goal. Only bring 3 to 5 business cards. Do not bring business cards and throw them out there. I hope somebody catches one. Okay? You go in with a focused goal, a laser beam goal. I want to meet 3 to 5 people that I can explore and see if there might be a relationship. And make it a point. Don't go over, stand in the corner. Don't get with your friends, which is the natural thing to do. We want to be a little unnatural here. Hi, I'm Jim Kill. What do you do? Go in and focus on it. What do you do? Really? Now, you may not give them a business card. They may not be a good fit for you. That's okay. Hi, I'm Jim Kill. What do you do? I work for. Really? You know, we've been thinking about possibly exploring doing business with your company. Could you help me? Again, use that word. Could you help me? Who do you know that would be the best person for me just to touch bases with to see if there might be a fit? 3. Could you give them my card? 3 to 5 cards. That should be your goal. Every networking event. That's what I want to accomplish. And get their card back. Don't just give them your card. Get their card. Do you have a card? Oh, I walked off and left them. Hey, that's okay. Could you write your name on the back of my card here with your phone number? Easy way to do it. I did a seminar last week for a repeat client, and I met this guy. They had a new salesperson. He was up from Fort Myers, Florida. I happen to have family down there. And I said, do you have a card? Because I thought, man, if I go down there and visit family, guess what? I'm going to call him. He wrote his name. Why do you want my name? I said, I got family who lives in Fort Myers. Going down there, I'd like to look you up. Sure, no problem. Ask. Answering the phone. You know, I find that most people, and I think it was, Peter, did you mention Zig Ziglar?
I did.
Zig Ziglar is my hero. He passed away last year.
Yeah.
My hero. Wow. First, 1979, I first heard. But here's what Zig said at one of the seminars I attended. He said, if you go into a phone book and just randomly pick 10 businesses and call their phone number, 7 or 8 out of the 10, when the person answers the phone on the other end, you will not be able to understand who you just called, because they don't know how to answer the phone. So I thought, maybe we better talk about that. Now, here's a physical interruption. Okay? Here's the person doing something, and you ring and they answer the phone, and it takes a second or so for them to lock in onto your voice. So knowing that, I usually say, if I'm answering the phone, thank you for calling. That gives them a time to lock in on my voice. Thank you for calling, and I tell them the name of this. Thank you for calling Steller Sales Training. This is Jim. I identify who I am. So thank them. Say very nicely and in a good tone and upbeat tone. Put a smile on your face. Have you ever called somebody and there's definitely not a smile on their face? What do you want? That's what it almost sounds like. You're bothering me. I got this mail to get out. Thank you for calling. Thank you for calling Steller Sales Training. This is Jim. Now, somebody might say, well, then I might say, how can I help you? That's okay. How may I direct your call? That's okay. But thank you for calling will give them time to lock in on your voice, and then they hear who they've called, so they know they got the right number, and they hear who they're talking to. That's how we answer the phone. Now, I put there good morning. That's okay. You can say that as well. Now, making the call. Lead with your name. Somebody answers the call. ABC Company, how may I help you? Hi, I'm Jim Kill with Steller Sales Training. Identify who you are. Lead with that name. Be proud of it. Be confident. When you exhibit confidence, they're much more likely to allow you to do what you want to do. Somebody mentioned, go ahead, Dennis Whaley, one of the first person I love Dennis Whaley. I haven't heard him in years. But one of the things Dennis Whaley talks about is something that he did when President Nixon was the president. Now he did this during, he said, I tried this. And he says, I got all the way to talk to President Nixon. He said, probably couldn't today, but I got all the way, because I led with confidence. Hi, could I speak with the president, please? This is. Said it with confidence. Now I'm not recommending that you do that. Okay? Probably won't get too far at this day and age anyhow. But lead with confidence. It's amazing what will happen. I called Chick-fil-A corporate a number of years ago. The company I was working for in Griffin, we were looking at possibly partnering them with something. And I said, well, I'll make the phone call. So I called, and they said, well, you need to talk to so-and-so. This is Vice President so. Okay. But he's not in, you'll have to talk to his assistant. I said, okay. Talked to the assistant. I said, hey, we're exploring this. And she said, oh, we don't do those types of things. I said, I understand. Just got a couple of questions for him. Would it be okay if I talk to him? Well, I don't know. Ma'am, I just have a couple of questions. Well, okay, I'll leave him a message. So he called me back a couple hours later. And almost the first thing out of his mouth is, he says, my assistant says you're kind of pushy. I didn't feel pushy. But I didn't want her to brush me off either. I said, just have a couple of quick questions to ask. Now, we never did any business with them, but that was okay. But it taught me it's okay to be a little persistent. Just to ask questions. It'd be okay to just ask a couple of questions. Okay. Now, a couple of options that I've got there. If you know who to talk to, then ask for it. May I speak with John Jones? Don't say Mr. Jones. Say John Jones. Because again, it sounds like you're expected. So when I'm calling, it sounds like I want to be expected. Now, maybe I don't have a name. That's the second option. Maybe I don't have a name. Again, I ask for help. And I give a title. What if you could help me? Typically, I speak with the vice president in charge of material handling. Give them a title. Sometimes I speak with the president, sometimes I speak with the owner, sometimes I speak with the sales manager. Could you help me with a name so I could call for an appointment? That's pretty non-threatening. So I can call for an appointment. That's all I want to do. Let's see if there might be an option. Okay? Turn the page. Let's talk about voicemail. How many of you have to leave a lot of voicemail messages?
Well, it's gotten to where most people don't answer their phone.
Oh, they don't? Exactly. Do you know that voicemail is the #1 source of lies in America today? It is, because there are typically 2 lies told on every voicemail message that you listen to. Hi, sorry I missed your call. Right. If you leave a message, I'll call back soon. Uh-huh. You know what your chances are for them to call you back if they don't know you? What percentage of the time? This is a national average. This is amazing.
1%.
Less than. It's 0.5%. That's why people don't, telemarketers don't leave voicemail messages anymore, because they know you're not calling them back.
And you got their number.
Now, you know the #1 reason that people don't return voicemail messages? Because when you leave the message, you leave too much information. Hey, I'd like to talk to you about this and this, and we do this. And I just worked with a company that sells software packages to colleges and universities. Here's their standard. Here's how they started out before we worked on this. Hi, I'm so-and-so with this particular company. We sell the premier package of, and just went into this long advertisement. This is the voicemail message. They haven't talked to anybody yet. Guess how many people called them back? Zip. I said, well, don't leave all that information. Now, let's suppose when we're finished here, you're going to check your phone and you got a voicemail message. Here it is. Hi, this is Dr. Schultz. I'm over here at the Riverside Medical Center. And I've got somebody here that says they're related to you. Would you please call me immediately? My phone number is. Now, how many of you would return that voicemail message? Why?
Urgency.
Urgency. Sounds important, doesn't it? Now, I'm not telling you to leave that message. Don't leave that.
It works.
It works. Okay? But I am saying, let's put a little sense of urgency into it, and let's don't give them everything we've got. All we want to do is get them to do what? We want them to call back. So here's my standard message. And I'll give you a couple of wins in using this message. Hi, I'm Jim Kill. I'm with Steller Sales. And I was hopeful you were the right person to help me. Glenn Gould told me to give you a call. He said you might be able to answer a couple of quick questions for me. Could you call me at your earliest convenience, please? My phone number is 770-233-0015. Again, Jim Kill with Steller Sales, 770-233-0015. That's my standard message. Now, that might not have been word for word what you got in front of you, but it doesn't have to be. It needs to sound natural. By the way, natural comes from practice. Practice. This guy I told you about before that hit all these home runs, he didn't just show up one day and say, well, the guy throws about 90. You know, I haven't practiced in a while. I can go out there and hit it 400 feet. No, practice. Practice. It's natural. Because I've done it over and over and over for 30 years. And taught it for the past 15. Okay? I tell them who I am. I tell them I just have a couple of quick questions. I give them a reference. Glenn Gould told me to give you a call. Could you call me at your earliest convenience? There's a sense of urgency. And when I get to my name and phone number, I slow down. How many of you have ever fielded a voicemail message where when they left you the phone number, they went into overdrive? How frustrating is that? I have some friends that say if they're not nice enough to slow down, I'm not going to be nice enough to try to even retrieve the message and return the call. Slow down. Now, here's a rule of thumb when you're getting started. When you're leaving that number, write it when you're leaving it. Because that's what the person is going to, hopefully, they're going to do. So write it as you leave it. Okay? Practice. By the way, call yourself. I know a lot of us don't have landlines anymore, but take some line and call your cell phone, or vice versa. Call something that you can leave your voicemail message and listen to it. Now here's what I'll tell you. If you won't return your own voicemail message, what do you think the chances are somebody else will? Practice. How do you sound? Remember, we're distorted, just the way we're constructed up here. I'm not hearing what you're hearing right now. My voice sounds different to you than it does to me. Your voice is going to sound different to other people than it sounds to you. So listen. It's got to sound natural. It's got to sound like you've got some confidence. Please call me at your earliest convenience. My phone number is. Now, do they have any knowledge of why you're calling? No. Have you said anything about your product?
No.
No. Here's who I am. Here's who I work for. Glenn Gould told me that you might be the best person to help me. There's that word again. I just had a couple of quick questions. Did business for a company up in Alpharetta for about 5 years. We just ended that assignment. And Sean Callahan is the owner and president. And Sean stood up in a meeting just like this. The first time I did training for him, he says, we were just talking about this. He said, can I talk? I said, Sean, you're paying the bill. Have the floor. He said, let me tell you why Jim's here. He left that message on my phone, and I called him back. I was given a referral. A friend of his, that's a mutual friend of mine, said, why don't you call Sean? He might have some business for me. Did a lot of business over 5 years. But he said, had a couple of quick questions. Didn't sound like he was going to waste my time. And he didn't. He looked like a fit. That's why he's here. A couple of quick questions. That's another phrase to become familiar with. A couple of quick questions. Now let's talk about those 2 quick questions. Okay? The first one, I want you to put the initials DM. D as in David, M as in Mary. DM. That stands for decision maker. I want to ask, am I talking to the decision maker? Now, Glenn may have given me a referral, and he says, hey, call Nick. And I'm not sure Nick's the right person, but you can start with Nick. So I might even say that. I say, hey, Nick, Glenn told me to give you a call. He wasn't sure you'd be the right person to help me, but could you call me back? I just had a couple of quick questions. Now, here's the DM question. You might have to write small. I've tried to give you some extra space here. When it comes to making decisions about whatever you sell, when it comes to making decisions about, put a blank there, you fill in the blank. When it comes to making decisions about, I would say sales training. When it comes to making decisions about sales training, would you be the best person to talk to about that, or would you recommend I talk to somebody else? When it comes to making decisions about, would you be the best person, or would you recommend I talk to somebody else? When it comes to making decisions about, would you be the best person to talk to about that, or would you recommend I talk to somebody else? I want to make sure I'm talking to the right person. Now, he may say, well, you start with me. Okay, I'll start. It's a starting point. When it comes to making decisions about, would you be the best person to talk to about that, or would you recommend I talk to somebody else? Okay? Now, I want you to, from number 1, in the left margin, from number 1, I want you to draw a curved arrow from 1 to 2, and put the word yes, because you're only going to ask number 2 question if you get a yes to the number 1 question. Okay? So if I get a no, let's suppose that they say, no, I'm not the best person to talk to. Then what would you say?
Who is?
Who is? Who is? That's easy. Now, if Nick says call Joe, okay, and I get Joe on the phone, he says, well, no, he says, I really don't do that anymore. That's okay. See, I asked the same thing. Hey, Nick said, Joe, when it comes to making decisions about you're the best person to talk to, and you say, no, talk to him, seriously. Okay. I want to get to the person. I keep asking that question. Now, I get yes. Here's number 2 question. I want you to put APPT. Adam, Paul, Tom. Period. That's abbreviation for appointment. Because here's the first sale that I make. I sell them on having an appointment with me. Hey, I've got a couple of things I'd like to show you. So, here's what I want to do. Hey, and that's what I'd say. Hey, I've got a couple, and maybe not use the word hey. That might not sound natural to you, but it would be to me. Hey, I've just got a couple of things I'd like to show you, and I say briefly. Again, I want to convey I'm not going to waste their time. And then you don't want to waste their time. I've made that mistake and lost a big sale to a major company. I could say the name of that company right now and you go, yeah, I've heard of that company up in Atlanta. Oh. I can tell you all my boners that I've done. Oh. And I've made a lot of them, but I've had some good ones too. That's a part of the process. Hey, I'd like to show you a couple of quick things. Would you be available, and then you put date and time. Would you be available next Tuesday or Wednesday? That might be you know you're going to be in that area Tuesday or Wednesday. You know you got some time Tuesday or Wednesday. Would you be available next Tuesday afternoon? I can even be more specific. Okay? But don't just say, would you be available, and let them pick the time, because that communicates, I got all the time in the world, I'm not very busy. Oh, no. Don't want to communicate that. I'm busy. Even though maybe you don't have an appointment, you look at your calendar and go, wow, it's empty. That's okay. They don't know that. They don't know that. There's a proverb in the Bible that says, only a fool tells everything he or she knows. Only a fool. Don't tell everything you know. That's one of them. Don't tell how busy your book is. Okay. So those are your questions. All right, so let's go to the last thing. I told you, hopefully, I think, and I've had a lot of people tell me this is the best. So hopefully I've saved the best to the last few. This is what we call the upfront contract. The upfront contract, the UFC. Okay? Now, when I say this, this is going to sound like what Debbie said before on the used car salesperson. I don't want you to be a used car salesperson. This has to have a good timing to it, and it has to be focused on the customer. Okay? So first of all, an upfront contract is a verbal contract. It's something that I say. It's not anything that I write out. It's something that I say, and it basically says this. If I do something for you, will you do something in return for me? If I do something for you, will you do something in return for me? That's the upfront contract. If I do something for you, will you do something in return for me? Okay, let me just give you an example. Let's use the example right there in front of you. The customer needs a special product that you have to order, and they need it by next Friday. Okay, you're having contact with them. Maybe it's somebody you're already doing business with. Maybe it's somebody that they say, you know, your timing is pretty good here because you sell this particular product. I need it by next Friday. So they have just communicated to you big need. So I'd like you to write that word need somewhere and maybe circle it to remind you. An upfront contract is a response to a need. A response to a need that they've identified. I need it by next Friday. So here's the upfront contract. Well, let me ask you this. Jared, if I could get you that by next Friday, could I go ahead and get a purchase order from you today?
Yes.
If I do something for you, now see, I haven't said I can. I've got to investigate it, but I'm testing the water. If I'm going to go out and spend a lot of my time and maybe my company's resources, maybe my company's time, and do some exploration to see if we can get her, maybe I have to call the office. Hey, can we get so-and-so by next Friday? So somebody's got to drop what they're doing and do some research, make some phone calls. So I'm going to say, if I'm willing to do that, will you commit back to me business? Now, let's do it in a more general way. Let me give you an example where I didn't use it and I should have. I'm calling a major bank in Atlanta. This would be in the late 80s, early 90s. And they said, hey, we need this product, but we need a sample first. Can you get us a sample? I said, yeah, I can get you a sample. I said, well, you get us a sample, bring it in to us, and then we'll determine whether we're going to do business with you. Now, I didn't ask the upfront contract. I went and got the sample. Brought the sample, well, had to have it shipped in. Brought the sample, she looked at it, she said, wow, I think this is exactly what we want. But we've got some other samples coming in from some competitors. We'll know something in 2 weeks. I said, okay. So I called back in 2 weeks. And I said, well, what's your decision? Well, we decided to go with one of your competitors. I said, oh, you like their sample better? She says, no, we like your sample the best. They can just make your sample cheaper. Yeah. Now, what should I have said? If I can get the sample,
you like it,
right?
Then will you give me the order?
I did. $100,000 order. Oh, yes. Hey, when I blow it big. All right? There's no messing around here. Let the pain be severe. Right? Hey, if I can get that sample for you and it's what you like, would you do business with me? Now, the neat thing about an upfront contract is you don't have to necessarily be that strong. You can say, listen, if I could do this and this, you've identified a couple of different things here. If I could do these 2 things, would you give us a shot at your business? See, that's not as strong as, can I have your business? Would you give us a shot? Would you consider us? Now, some of you, because of your personalities, you say, you know, I'd feel more natural, more comfortable doing it that way. You can. All right? How about you? Do you have a specific example of an upfront contract that you'd like to ask? You say, well, I'm not sure on this, but let's ask it. Glenn.
I'll give an example from my wife's business because you made me just think of it.
Okay.
And that is, she does pick up and delivery of dry cleaning, and we provide a free bag that costs, you know, $4 or $5 to produce. And so people will say, can you bring me a bag? And she'll bring the bag and just drop it off, and it's like the witness protection program. You can never find them again, or your bag, right? And so you brought up a very good point that I've never thought of. We need to get a commitment out of them, you know, something for that bag because it's a value, and the effort to get it there is a value. So that was a great example.
Now let's help Glenn. What would be a good way? Somebody calls and says, "Hey, can you bring me a bag?" What would be, from your perspective, not necessarily the one that his wife would use, but what do you think? What would be a decent, Debbie?
The first thing I would say is, I'll be happy to do that, and you know, it's free if you fill it with laundry.
Okay.
Or whatever it is.
Okay.
There you go.
Jared, what were you going to say?
If we'd be willing to bring you a complimentary laundry bag, would you give us a shot at trying our service one time?
Okay.
We'll be happy to with your first order.
Okay.
We'll give you a free bag at the end.
Okay. Tell me your name again.
Chuck.
Chuck.
We'll leave your bag with you when we bring back your first delivery.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Good ones. But you start to think. Somebody asks you for a commitment. Will you do? The upfront contract just says, if I do something for you, will you do something for me? Most salespeople, they overcommit. Oh, I'll do this and this and this, and they do it, and they get nothing in return. Nothing in return. So use the upfront contract. All right. Any questions? Because I want to close with just a couple of quick stories. I told Glenn, I said, how long do I got? And he said, well, let's cut it off at 9:30. I said, oh, I'll be done at 9. Any questions? Anything that you'd like to get? Harder.
On the upfront contract, what happens if they don't follow through? Like with the back, they said they give you a purchase order, but then they interviewed other people, you came back and they said, oh, we decided to go with someone else. We canceled.
No.
Or they send you a letter.
Nothing works all the time. But there's a thing about human nature that the more I ask, the more they're inclined to do what I want. There's something that I heard years ago says, nobody is wired to make a decision. Nobody's wired to make a decision. But nobody's wired to reject you either. So our job as salespeople is to help them make decisions, and then I ask them for their business. You have not because you ask not. And most of us don't ask it. Okay, good question. Jared. Okay, and now wait a minute. It's Benita. Okay, hey.
Any suggestions, I guess, with elective services in medicine? With services where people are coming in because they have a problem or whatever, you can kind of expect them to come, but for some of the cosmetic services that clients or patients don't necessarily need, one of the things I've been experiencing is people making appointments and counseling.
Okay, okay. One of the things, and I worked with a company in Knoxville, Tennessee years ago, that their job was they were like a PR firm for the medical profession. So they would call on people like yourself in all different professions. And one of the things that they said, their biggest success was to get other people to refer them. So if you've got people, do you have good referral sources right now that people are referring to you? Okay. What you might consider doing is putting together something where you actively call on some people that would be good referral sources for you, other people in the medical profession that would say, you know, call them Benita, you know. Okay? Jared.
So I have several years of customers who I haven't done the best job of following up and asking for those referrals. You know, over the course of time, you lose rapport with people.
Right.
How would you suggest, you know, take a list of previous customers over the last 4 years? I would call them, kind of rekindle, you know, that rapport, and then go forward and ask for, you know, for their business again and referrals.
What my recommendation, Jared, would be to start with, right now, start with those people that you have a great relationship with. Okay. And go through them first. And then go back and just say, you know, haven't done business with you in a while, but just wanted to see if maybe you've got something new I'd like to talk to you about, and just start to rekindle that relationship. Because you got to rekindle that first before you can expect a referral.
Jim, just as an example, I've had some experience in that as a consultant in the past. If you have new products or services that you offer now, like you said, start with your lowest hanging fruit, your current customers that you do the majority of your business with. But then a great segue is to pick up the phone, make a list of a specific number, a quantity of those people you want to touch in a week, and call them daily. And if you haven't talked to them in 6 months, you know, a year or longer, say, hey, I know I haven't spoken to you. I have a new service, a new product, XYZ. Just wanted to put it out there and let you know, and if I can be of assistance. It's going to be the law of averages, the old 10-4-1, you know, 10 prospects, 4 meetings, 1 sale. But at the end of the day, when it comes to old business, in my personal experience, it's just going after the numbers. But if you touch base with them 9 times out of 10, if you had a good rapport, then chances are you'll at least get in the door.
Use that word show. I got something new I'd like to show you. In other words, can you put something in the mail? No, I really need to show you. Because a lot of people will, yeah, put it in the mail or email me something.
Email you something, and, you know, no, I really need to show you.
Right.
I like that. I've got a business that will fit.
Chuck.
Given, I've asked for referrals before, the customer that I have just currently done completed business. They look like a deer in the headlights. And all I can figure is that they think I'm asking them for their customer base, and I'm not asking for their customer base. I really don't know what I'm saying wrong, but I'm doing something wrong.
Sometimes if we narrow it down, Chuck, and we just say, do you have 2 or 3 people that you can think of that might be a good fit? And I know, and here's the way I segue or kind of temper that. I say, you know, Chuck, I know I'm putting you on the spot today. So today is Tuesday. Would it be okay if I called you toward the end of the week just to see who's come to mind? Again, I prime the pump. Who's come to mind? Not to see if anybody's come to mind, see who's come to mind. And it's amazing, our brains are constantly working. And you might not know of somebody today because you're put on the spot, but your brain's thinking about it, not even consciously, subconsciously, and boom, those names will pop up. I learned that by playing crossword puzzles. You know, I'll go through the crossword puzzle, do all the easy ones, and boy, I should know that one. Lay the book down, go do something else, come back. There it is. Because my brain's constantly thinking about it. It works with names, too.
What I have found in that arena is if you say, you know, this customer is happy he's done business with me. He's made a good decision. And refresh that in his mind and say, who else do you know that it could benefit from this as well?
Okay. Let me, hold on just a minute. Andrew, right? Andrew. Okay. Let me close this portion. I'll talk to you personally. I don't have to leave right now, but I do have to leave by about 9:30. Okay, but let me tell you about 3 significant people in my life. First person's my father. My father passed away almost 3 years ago now. Dad could not do what I did. Dad was not a people person, except he was a servant and a hard worker. And he taught me the value of working hard. One of the things that I've taught all 6 of my children is develop a good attitude, work hard, you'll never be without work. And all 6 of my children, except for maybe a couple of times here and there, they've had jobs because they've learned that. Be a hard worker. Number 2 is my mother. Mom couldn't do much of this either. But Mom taught me the value of people. Love people. Serve people. And that's what I try to do, serve. Expecting nothing in return. Because what you give comes back many times over. Last person is Zig Ziglar. I mentioned Zig before. Here's the impact Zig had on my life. In 1981, Zig was, I was living in Ohio. I had heard him speak 2 or 3 times. He was speaking at a conference in Macon. So my wife and I trekked down. Weekend conference, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday morning, I listened to him throughout the weekend. Sunday morning, there was an optional time that they had kind of like a non-denominational Christian worship service. And I thought Zig was going to speak or share, and I've never heard him share before. So here's something that he said something just hit me right between the eyes. He said, you know, I went to church all my life. Had a lady come up a few years ago, and she put her finger right, an old lady, put her finger right in my chest and said, who's leading your life, big boy? And he said, well, I'm a Christian, Jesus Christ. And he said, I went home, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, you just lied to that old woman. He said, you've been trying to run your life, and you messed it up. And he said, at that point, I wasn't doing so good. And he said, I made a decision right then to do what I told that old lady I was doing anyhow. Put Jesus Christ in charge of my life. And he said, radically changed it. Now, I'm not saying this to be some kind of a religious, Bible-thumping fanatic. I am not. I'm saying, I heard somebody that I respected say, that's what I did, and it radically changed my life, and I thought, maybe that can work for Jim. It did. Made that decision that day. It did. That's why I do what I do today. That's the only reason I do what I do today. So thank you. Thanks, Glenn, for having me. I hope I've been helpful.